Have you ever had one of those days or months or maybe even years where the tiredness doesn't just live in your body, but in your very bones? A fatigue so profound that even the smallest interaction, a text message, a casual, "How are you?" feels like lifting a weight you can no longer carry. You sleep, but you don't feel rested. You rest, but you don't feel restored. And somewhere in the quiet of your mind, a fearful question starts to whisper. Is there something fundamentally wrong with me? What if I told you that this exhaustion isn't a sign of weakness, but a signal? Not a character flaw, but a systems check. That this deep weariness has nothing to do with how strong you are, and everything to do with how much you've been carrying. Most of us are walking through life with a drained emotional battery. We're operating on reserves that were depleted long ago, by stress that doesn't quit, by overthinking that loops in the background like a song you can't shut off, by the quiet, constant pressure of people-pleasing, or simply by navigating life's inevitable challenges without ever giving ourselves permission to truly pause and recharge. Your emotional world is its own kind of energy source. It requires input to sustain output. And when you consistently give more than you receive, when you absorb the emotions of everyone around you without ever processing your own, when you live in a state of high alert for weeks or months, managing crises, anticipating needs, holding it together for everybody else, your inner resources dip lower and lower until one day you're running on empty. Maybe you've been the strong one, the reliable friend, the go-to employee, the rock for your family. You've absorbed the stress of others. You've shouldered the emotional weight of your relationships. You've shown up even when you had nothing left to give, all while quietly neglecting your own needs, telling yourself you'll rest when things calm down, not realizing that life rarely calms down on its own. Perhaps you've been operating in survival mode for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be truly energized, not running on caffeine, obligation, or the last bursts of adrenaline, but grounded in a sense of genuine vitality. This kind of exhaustion is different from physical tiredness. You can sleep for 10 hours and still wake up feeling like you never closed your eyes, because while your body was still, your nervous system never downshifted. Your mind was still racing, processing, worrying, working. Simple decisions become overwhelming. What to make for dinner feels like a calculus problem. A minor change in plans derails your entire afternoon. You might find yourself snapping at people you love, not because you're angry or don't care, but because you have no reserves left for patience, for understanding, for emotional regulation. Everything feels like too much because your capacity to handle normal life has been compromised by chronic depletion. You're trying to run a modern operating system on a battery at 1%. And the cost of living with a drained emotional battery goes far beyond just feeling tired. When you're running on empty, you lose access to your own wisdom. Your intuition goes quiet. Your creativity feels like a distant memory. Your natural resilience, the part of you that knows how to bounce back, is nowhere to be found. Why? Because you can't draw from a well that's run dry. Decision-making becomes harder because you're choosing from a place of scarcity, not abundance. Fear, not clarity, becomes your guide. You might say yes to commitments you know you can't sustain, or pull away from opportunities that could actually nourish you because, from this drained place, everything looks impossible. You might settle for less in relationships, not because you don't deserve more, but because you don't have the energy to believe you do. Perhaps the cruelest irony of emotional depletion is that it robs you of the very things that could help restore you. When your battery is low, compliments slide right off. An offer of help feels like another task on your list. An invitation to something fun can feel overwhelming, another demand on energy you don't have. You become so accustomed to running on fumes that you forget what it feels like to truly receive, to take in goodness, support, joy, and quiet moments without guilt, without the urge to immediately reciprocate, without feeling like you're behind on some invisible ledger. This state creates a cycle that feeds itself. You're too tired to do the things that would energize you, so you become more tired, which makes those activities feel even more out of reach. You might withdraw from friends, abandon the hobbies that once lit you up, stop moving your body in ways that feel good, not because you don't want to, but because the thought of doing them feels like being asked to climb a mountain. Our culture rarely acknowledges a simple, vital truth: your emotional energy is not infinite. We treat ourselves like machines that can run indefinitely without maintenance, then wonder why we break down. We would never expect our phones to work without charging, or our cars to run without fuel, yet we expect our inner worlds to operate without regular restoration, without kindness, without intention. The depletion you feel isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you've been giving, going, and doing without adequate return. It's your system asking for care. This changes everything. It shifts the question from "what's wrong with me" to "what have I been through?" From "why can't I keep up?" to "what do I need to restore?" Your exhaustion isn't a character defect. It's valuable data. It's information about what's been draining you and what your system requires to come back to life. Think of your emotional energy like a battery. Some things drain it. Some things charge it. And everyone's charging sources are different. For some, it's solitude and quiet. For others, it's connection with people who feel like home. For some, it's movement. For others, it's deep rest. For some, it's creating. For others, it's enjoying what others have created. There's no right or wrong way to recharge. There's only what works for you. Start by getting curious. Conduct an honest energy audit of your life. What people, activities, and environments leave you feeling fuller? What leaves you feeling drained? This isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. It's about beginning to notice the relationship between what you do and how you feel. Then, practice saying no. Not as a rejection, but as a redirection of your energy back toward yourself. Your depleted battery can't sustain what it once could, and that's okay. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's how you begin to rebuild. Find small, accessible ways to nourish yourself. It might be 5 minutes with your tea looking out the window, a walk without headphones, putting your phone in another room for an hour, reading a book for fun, dancing in your kitchen to one song. It doesn't have to be big to be meaningful. The goal isn't to add another thing to your to-do list, but to find moments that feel like relief, like a gentle return to yourself. Guard your recharge time like you would guard any other non-negotiable commitment, because it is one. This isn't about self-indulgence. It's about sustainability. It's about building a life you don't need to constantly recover from. Slowly, something begins to change. It doesn't happen all at once, but in subtle shifts. One day, you realize a task that felt overwhelming now feels manageable. A conversation that would have drained you now feels neutral, maybe even enjoyable. You begin to respond instead of react. Think more clearly. Access your sense of humor again. You remember what it feels like to engage with life from a place of presence, not just pressure. This is how you rebuild, not through force, but through care. Not by pushing harder, but by listening more closely. You learn to recognize the early signs of depletion before you hit empty. You get better at balancing output with input. You begin to invest in relationships and activities that genuinely nourish you, rather than ones that just look productive on the surface. Most importantly, you develop a new relationship with yourself, one based on compassion, not criticism. You understand that your energy will have natural cycles. Some days will be better than others. And that's okay. Your worth isn't tied to your productivity. Your strength isn't measured by how much you can carry without rest. True resilience isn't about never falling apart. It's about knowing how to put yourself back together. So if you're listening to this and feeling that deep weariness in your bones, if you've been wondering when rest will finally feel like rest, let this be your permission slip to stop, to recharge, to tend to your own energy like the precious resource it is. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. And you, your well-being, your peace, your joy are worth refilling.